A massive screen in the Galactic Council chamber flickered to life. Every alien representative in the room turned to watch as a face appeared on the display. It was not a pleasant face to look at. The creature had dark red skin covered in sharp ridges. Its eyes glowed like burning coals. 2 long fangs curved down from its upper jaw. This was Supreme Commander Vextil of the Zerati hegemony. "Attention all species of this pathetic galaxy," the creature spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "I am here to deliver a message that will change everything. The great Zerati Empire has decided to expand our territory. We have chosen our next target." Ambassador Sarah Chun sat in her chair among the other representatives. She was a small human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Around her, the other aliens shifted nervously in their seats. The crystalline Vorthic made clicking sounds with their bodies. The tall Altarians whispered to each other with worry in their voices. "Our target," Vextil continued, "is the pathetic species called humans. These weak creatures have spread like a disease across several star systems. They think they belong among the stars. They are wrong." Sarah felt her heart start to beat faster, but she kept her face calm. She had been expecting this day for a long time. The Zerati had been growing more aggressive for years. They had destroyed 3 smaller civilizations already. Everyone knew they would eventually turn their attention to someone bigger. "The humans are nothing but primitive apes who got lucky," Vextil said with a cruel laugh. "They stumbled into space travel by accident. They have no right to claim worlds that could belong to superior species like the Zerati." The commander leaned forward on the screen. His fangs gleamed in the light. "Here are our terms. The human government has exactly 72 standard hours to surrender completely. They must give up all their colonies. They must give up all their ships. They must return to their home planet Earth and stay there forever." Murmurs of shock filled the chamber. Even for the Zerati, this was extremely aggressive. The Altarian ambassador stood up on his long legs. "Commander Vextil, surely you cannot be serious. The humans have done nothing to threaten your empire." "Silence." Vextil roared. "I did not ask for your opinion, Tree Dweller. The humans exist where they should not exist. That is threat enough." The Vorthic representative, a being made of living crystal, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "What if the humans refuse your demands?" Vextil smiled, showing all of his sharp teeth. "Then we will demonstrate what happens to species who defy the Zerati Empire. We will turn every human world into glass. We will hunt down every human ship in space. We will make sure that nothing remains of their pathetic civilization except stories told by other species as warnings." Sarah felt cold anger building in her chest, but she forced herself to remain still. Around the chamber, other representatives looked at her with pity. Some looked away entirely, as if they were already attending her funeral. "Our fleet is already moving toward human space," Vextil announced. 2,000 ships of war, each one capable of destroying a planet. The largest military force ever assembled in this galaxy. Even if every other species joined together too. Help the humans, they could not stop us. The Altarian ambassador tried again. Perhaps there could be negotiations. The humans might be willing to give up some of their colonies in exchange for peace. "There will be no negotiations," Vextil snarled. "The humans will surrender completely, or they will die completely. Those are the only choices." Sarah finally stood up. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to her. She was so much smaller than most of the other representatives. Next to the towering Altarians or the massive rock-like Threnody, she looked tiny and fragile. "Commander Vextil," she said in a clear, steady voice, "I have heard your message. I will pass it along to my government immediately." "Good," Vextil growled. "Tell them that the Zerati Empire has never been defeated in war. Tell them that resistance is useless. Tell them that mercy is only possible through complete surrender. Sarah nodded slowly. I will tell them exactly what you said. Is there anything else you want me to communicate? Yes, Bextel said, his eyes burning brighter. Tell them that if they try to run, we will chase them to the edge of the galaxy. Tell them that if they try to hide, we will find them. Tell them that the Zerati Empire remembers every insult, and we always collect what is owed to us. I understand, Sarah replied. Will that be all? That is all. You have 72 hours. Do not waste them. The screen went blacked out. The chamber erupted in noise as representatives began talking all at once. The Altarians were whispering frantically among themselves. The Vorthik were making their worried chiming sounds. Even the normally silent Threnody were rumbling with concern. The Altarian ambassador approached Sarah. His people had been allies with humans for 20 years. Ambassador Chun, my government wants you to know that we will do everything we can to help. Perhaps we can arrange for refugee ships to evacuate your colonies. That is very kind, Sarah said politely. But I do not think that will be necessary. The crystal being from the Vorthik delegation floated over to her. Sarah, you must be realistic. The Zerati fleet is enormous. Your people have perhaps 300 ships total. Many of those are just cargo vessels or exploration ships. You cannot fight them. The Vorthik are correct, added the massive Threnody representative, his voice like an avalanche. The humans should consider negotiation. Perhaps the Zerati will accept partial surrender. Sarah smiled at all of them. It was a strange smile, calm and confident, in a way that made no sense given the situation. Thank you all for your concern. Your friendship means a great deal to us. But I think you may be surprised by how this situation develops. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small communication device. The other representatives watched. As she activated it, a green light began blinking, indicating that the signal was being transmitted across space to human territory. Admiral Morrison, Sarah said into the device. This is Ambassador Chun. The Zerati have made their position very clear. They have given us 72 hours to surrender completely or face total destruction. She paused for a moment, listening to the response that only she could hear through her earpiece. Then she nodded. Understood, Admiral. Please implement Protocol 7 immediately. The watching aliens looked confused. They had never heard of Protocol 7. In fact, they had never heard humans mention any numbered protocols at all. Sarah put the communication device away and turned back to the other representatives. Her smile had not changed at all. If you will excuse me, she said politely, I need to prepare some reports for my government. I suspect the next few days will be quite interesting. As she walked toward the exit, the Altarian ambassador called after her. Sarah, what is Protocol 7? She stopped at the doorway and looked back at him. For just a moment, something cold and dangerous flickered in her kind eyes. You will find out soon enough, she said quietly. Then she was gone. The remaining representatives stood in confused silence. None of them understood why the human ambassador seemed so calm. None of them could imagine what Protocol 7 might be. All they knew was that Sarah Chun had not looked like someone whose people were about to be destroyed. She had looked like someone whose people were about to do the destroying. Outside the council chamber, Sarah walked quickly down the corridor toward her office. Her calm expression never changed, but inside she felt a mixture of sadness and grim satisfaction. For 50 years, humanity had hoped this day would never come. They had tried diplomacy. They had tried trade. They had tried friendship with dozens of alien species, but they had also prepared for war. Now, the Zerati had forced their hand. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn what humans were really capable when pushed too far. Sarah only hoped that other species would learn the right lesson from what was about to happen. The age of underestimating humanity was about to end forever. Admiral Jessica Morrison stood on the bridge of the starship Indomitable and watched as her communications officer worked frantically at his station. Around the massive command center, dozens of other officers were busy sending messages to every corner of human space. The Protocol 7 activation signal was spreading like wildfire across the galaxy. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we have confirmation from all sectors. The signal has been received and acknowledged." "Excellent," Morrison replied. She was a tall woman with short black hair and steel-gray eyes. She had been in the human space navy for 30 years, but nobody outside of a very small group knew her real job. To the rest of the galaxy, she was just another ship captain. In reality, she commanded the largest secret military force in known space. "Begin Phase 1 immediately," she ordered. Across human territory, the most carefully planned deception in galactic history began to unfold. On every human colony world, emergency broadcasts filled the airwaves. All civilian ships must evacuate. Immediately, the messages said, military vessels are pulling back to defend the inner systems. This is not a drill. To any aliens watching, it looked exactly like panic. Thousands of cargo ships, passenger vessels, and small private craft began fleeing from the border worlds toward the safety of Earth and the other core human systems. The withdrawal appeared chaotic and desperate, exactly what anyone would expect from a weak species facing impossible odds. But appearances could be very deceiving. Captain Zhang Wei piloted his cargo ship Prosperity away from the mining colony of New Shanghai. To the Zarati scouts watching from the edge of the system, he looked like just another frightened civilian running for his life. They had no way of knowing that his cargo ship was actually packed with the most advanced weapon systems in the galaxy, or that Captain Zhang was a decorated combat veteran who had been waiting 20 years for this moment. "Prosperity to control," Zhang said quietly into his communicator. "Package is delivered and armed, moving to secondary position. Copy that, Prosperity? Well done." The package Zhang had left behind looked like abandoned mining equipment. In reality, it was a quantum torpedo launcher capable of destroying anything within 1,000,000 kilometers. Zarati scouts would fly right past it without ever knowing it was there. Similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds. What looked like a panicked retreat was actually the deployment of the most sophisticated defense network ever created. Every piece of abandoned equipment, every damaged satellite, every broken-down mining station was a carefully disguised weapon system. Meanwhile, in the asteroid fields of the Vega system, something much larger was happening. "Commander, Lisa." Park watched as the rocky surface of a particularly large asteroid began to split apart. What emerged was not mining equipment or a research station. It was a shipyard. "Phoenix Base to all construction teams," Park announced. "Camouflage deactivation is complete. Begin final assembly immediately." The asteroid had been hollow for 40 years. Inside its carefully concealed interior, human engineers had been building warships that no alien species had ever seen before. The construction bays that emerged from the rock were each large enough to hold a small city, and every single one contained a fully assembled battleship. Park smiled as she watched the massive vessels begin to move out of their hiding places. Each ship was 3 times the size of anything the galaxy thought humans could build. Their armor was made from materials that did not officially exist. Their weapons were based on technology that humans were not supposed to understand. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Park said to her second-in-command as the first battleship cleared the asteroid. "All 12 ships are magnificent," the younger officer replied. "How long until the other bases finish their launches?" 6 hours. By then, we'll have over 10,000 ships in space. The younger officer whistled in amazement. The Zarati think we have 300 ships total. Let them keep thinking that for a few more hours, Park said with a grin. In another part of space, something even more impressive was happening. Captain Sarah Rodriguez had been flying the same patrol route for 15 years. Every alien scout who had ever observed her knew her ship, the Wanderer. It was a small exploration vessel, obviously unarmed, clearly no threat to anyone. Today, Rodriguez activated a series of controls that she had never used before. The outer hull of the Wanderer began to change. Panels slid away to reveal hidden weapon systems. The engines that had seemed barely powerful enough for exploration suddenly showed their true capability as military-grade drives. In less than 10 minutes, the harmless exploration ship had transformed into a deadly stealth fighter. Wanderer to Fleet Command, Rodriguez reported. Transformation complete. All systems showing green. Copy that, Wanderer. You are cleared to begin hunting operations. Rodriguez smiled coldly. She had spent 15 years watching Zarati scouts spy on human shipping routes. Now it was time to return the favor. Back on the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Morrison reviewed the reports flowing in from across human space. Every secret base was powering up. Every hidden shipyard was launching its vessels. Every disguised warship was revealing its true nature. Admiral, her tactical officer announced, we now have confirmed deployment of 8,412 ships. Estimate full deployment in 4 hours. Morrison nodded. What about the Zarati fleet? Still advancing toward our territory. They seem to be interpreting our civilian evacuation as a sign of weakness. Intelligence suggests they're moving faster than originally planned. Perfect. The more confident they feel, the bigger the surprise will be. Morrison walked to the main display screen, which showed a tactical map of the entire region. Red dots marked the positions of Zarati ships. Blue dots showed human vessels. A few hours ago, the red dots had vastly outnumbered the blue ones. Now, the situation was rapidly changing. Admiral, the communications officer, called out, we're receiving a message from Ambassador Chun on the Galactic Council station. Put her through. Sarah Chun's face appeared on the screen. She was sitting in her private office, looking as calm as ever. Admiral Morrison, I trust Protocol 7 is proceeding smoothly? Better than we could have hoped, Ambassador. The Zarati are taking the bait completely. They think we're running scared. Excellent. The other galactic species are watching this situation very carefully. Several governments have already sent me private messages offering refugee assistance. Morrison almost laughed. Refugee assistance. If they only knew. How long until you're ready for Phase 2? Morrison checked her displays again. 6 hours. For full deployment. After that, we can engage at any time. Good. The Zarati fleet should reach the Kepler system in about 8 hours. That will be perfect timing. Ambassador, are you certain the other galactic governments don't suspect anything? Chun smiled. Admiral, we've been playing the role of peaceful, slightly primitive humans for 50 years. We've been so convincing that even our closest allies believe it. The Altarians actually offered to help us negotiate a partial surrender with the Zarati. And what did you tell them? I thanked them for their concern and told them it wouldn't be necessary. Morrison grinned. I bet that confused them. They have no idea what to make of our confidence. None of them do. As far as the galaxy knows, we're about to be wiped out by a vastly superior force. Well, they're half right about the wiping out part. Indeed. Is there anything else you need from the diplomatic side? Morrison thought for a moment. Just make sure the council station is recording everything that happens. I want every species in the galaxy to see exactly what we're capable of. Already arranged. Every moment of the coming battle will be broadcast live to the entire Galactic Council. Perfect. Morrison out. As the connection ended, Morrison turned. Back to her tactical displays. The transformation of human space was almost complete. Hidden bases that had been secret for decades were now fully operational. Disguised ships that had spent years pretending to be harmless were now revealed as sophisticated weapons of war. "Admiral," her intelligence officer reported, "we're detecting increased Zerati communications. They seem very pleased with themselves." "Let me guess. They think we're in full retreat." "Exactly. Their commander is boasting about how quickly the humans are running away." Morrison laughed. "Supreme Commander Vexthal is in for quite a shock." "Admiral, do you really think this will work?" "I mean, we've never tested these systems in actual combat." Morrison's expression became serious. "Commander, humanity has spent 50 years studying every species in this galaxy. We know their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses. We've built our ships specifically to counter their technology. We've trained our crews for every possible scenario." She paused and looked around the bridge at her officers. "More importantly, we've had 50 years to think about this moment. 50 years to plan. 50 years to prepare. The Zerati are walking into a trap that we've been setting since before most of you were born. And if we're wrong?" Morrison's eyes went cold. "Then humanity dies fighting instead of surrendering. But we're not wrong, Commander. In a few hours, you'll see why." Across the galaxy, the final preparations continued. Human ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels were powering up their real engines. Supreme Commander Vexthal stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, and felt very pleased with himself. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see hundreds of Zerati warships flying in perfect formation toward human space. His fleet was magnificent. 2,000 of the most powerful ships ever built, crewed by the finest warriors in the galaxy. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "we are now 6 hours from the human border. Our scouts report continued evacuation activity. The humans appear to be in complete panic." Vexthal laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Of course they are panicking. They finally understand what it means to face the Zerati. Empire, have our advanced scouts detected any military resistance?" "None, sir. We have observed several small patrol ships fleeing toward their core systems. They did not even attempt to engage our scouts." "Pathetic," Vexthal snarled. "These humans are even weaker than I expected. Perhaps we will not even need our full fleet to crush them." The Supreme Commander walked to his command chair, satisfied that everything was proceeding perfectly. The humans were behaving exactly as he had predicted. They were weak, cowardly creatures who had never faced a real military force. In a few hours, their pathetic resistance would be over. But 50 light years away, a very different conversation was taking place. "Contact acquired," reported Lieutenant Maria Santos from her position aboard the stealth ship Shadow. "Zerati. Scout formation, 12 ships, proceeding on course 27 Mark IV. Her captain, Commander Eric Johnson, smiled grimly. "Perfect. Are the other hunters in position?" "Affirmative, sir. Phantom and Ghost report ready to engage." "Excellent. Let's see how good these Zerati really are." The Shadow was invisible to every known detection system in the galaxy. Its hull was covered with materials that absorbed sensor beams instead of reflecting them. Its engines produced no detectable emissions. Even its weapons were designed to fire without creating any energy signature that could be traced back to the ship for 15 years. Commander Johnson had been flying patrol routes near Zerati space, watching their ships, learning their patterns. The aliens had never suspected he was there. Today, that knowledge would finally be put to use. "Weapons ready, sir," his gunner reported. "Fire." A beam of concentrated energy lanced out from the Shadow, striking the lead Zerati scout ship. The alien vessel simply vanished, turned into expanding gas and debris in less than a second. Before the other scouts could even react, similar beams erupted from empty space around them. The Phantom and Ghost had fired as well. In 30 seconds, the entire Zerati scout formation was destroyed. All targets eliminated, Santos reported. No survivors detected. Good. Set course for intercept point Delta. Let's find another patrol. Similar scenes were playing out across a dozen star systems. Human stealth ships that the galaxy didn't know existed were systematically hunting down Zerati scouts. The alien advance forces were disappearing one by one, with no idea what was happening to them. Back on the Destroyer of Worlds, Vexthal was beginning to feel the first hints of concern. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "we've lost contact with Scout Group 7. "What do you mean, lost contact?" "Their signals simply stopped, sir. No distress calls, no battle reports. They were transmitting normally one moment, then nothing." Vexthal frowned. "Could be equipment failure." "What about the other scout groups?" "Groups 3, 9, and 12 have also gone silent, sir." Now Vexthal was definitely concerned. "Send a full squadron to investigate." "I want to know what happened to those scouts." "Yes, sir." Squadron leader reports they will reach the last known position of Group 7 in 2 hours. The Supreme Commander paced back and forth across his bridge. 4 scout groups didn't just disappear for no reason. Something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what. Meanwhile, in the hidden command center buried deep beneath Earth's surface, Admiral Morrison was watching the battle develop in real time. Holographic displays showed the positions of every ship in space, both human and Zerati. The picture was very encouraging. "Admiral," her intelligence chief reported, "Operation Silent Hunter is proceeding perfectly. We've eliminated 37 Zerati scout ships so far. They still have no idea what's happening to them." "Excellent. What about our main fleet deployment?" "Complete, Admiral. All ships are in position and ready for battle. Total count, 9,843 vessels." Morrison smiled. The galaxy thought humanity had 300 ships. They actually had almost 10,000. It was the greatest military deception in known history. "And the special weapons?" "All quantum torpedo platforms are online and armed. Temporal disruptor cannons are charged and ready. The gravitational wave generators are standing by." Morrison nodded. Those weapons represented 50 years of research into technologies that most alien species considered impossible. The Zerati were about to discover that humans were very good at making the impossible work. "Admiral," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Chun requests a priority conference." "Put her through." Sarah Chun's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Morrison could see the council chamber filled with alien representatives. "Admiral Morrison," Chun said formally, "I am here with representatives from 15 galactic governments. They have asked me to relay their concerns about the coming battle." "What concerns?" The Altarian ambassador stepped into view. "Admiral Morrison, our intelligence suggests that the Zerati fleet is extremely large and well armed. We are worried that humanity may not understand the true scope of the threat you face." Morrison had to work hard not to laugh. "Ambassador, we appreciate your concern, but I think you may be surprised by how this situation develops." "Admiral," the crystalline Vorthic representative chimed in, "our calculations indicate that the Zerati possess at least a 6-to-1 numerical advantage. Even if your ships are superior in technology, such odds are impossible to overcome." "Are they?" Morrison asked quietly. Something in her tone made all the alien representatives pause. They had expected to speak with a desperate human commander, facing impossible odds. Instead, they were looking at someone who seemed completely confident. Admiral, Ambassador Chun said carefully, the council members would like to know if humanity has any ... surprises. That might change the tactical situation. Morrison smiled. Ambassador, I think it would be more accurate to say that the tactical situation is not quite what it appears to be. What do you mean? You'll find out in about 4 hours. Morrison. Out. As the connection ended, the alien representatives in the council chamber began talking excitedly among themselves. Something was wrong with this picture. The humans were acting far too confident for people who were about to be destroyed. Back in space, the Zarati Investigation Squadron had reached the last known position of Scout Group 7. Squadron Leader Crexton studied his sensors carefully, but there was nothing to see except empty space. This makes no sense, he muttered. 12 ships don't just vanish. Sir, his sensor operator reported, I'm detecting some debris. Very small pieces, scattered over a wide area. Can you identify what kind of debris? It appears to be Zarati hull metal, sir, but the pieces are so small. It's like the ships were completely vaporized. Crexton felt cold fear crawling up his spine. What kind of weapon could completely destroy a Zarati warship? Their shields were supposed to be able to stop anything short of a planet-killer missile. Sir, another officer called out, I'm detecting an energy signature. Something's out there. Where? I can't get an exact fix. It's like the readings are coming from empty space. Crexton stared at his displays. Empty space that contained an energy signature. Ships that had been completely vaporized. This was starting to feel very much like a trap. All ships, prepare for combat. Raise shields and arm weapons. But it was already too late. The humans had been watching and waiting. As soon as the Zarati squadron powered up their weapons, they revealed their exact positions to the stealth ships that surrounded them. Beams of quantum energy erupted from seemingly empty space. One by one, the Zarati vessels were destroyed with surgical precision. Squadron leader Crexton had just enough time to send a single terrified message before his ship was vaporized. Command, this is Investigation Squadron Alpha. We are under attack by invisible enemies. They're destroying us with unknown weapons. Request immediate backup. Request. The transmission cut off abruptly. On the Destroyer of Worlds, Supreme Commander Veek Still listened to the message with growing horror. Invisible enemies. Unknown weapons. Ships being vaporized without a trace. How many scout groups have we lost now? He demanded. 14, sir. Over 60 ships total. And we still don't know what's killing them? No, sir. Whatever these weapons are, they're beyond our current technology to detect or counter. Vexthal slammed his fist on his command chair. This was not how the battle was supposed to go. The humans were supposed to be weak and helpless. They were not supposed to have invisible ships and impossible weapons. Send a message to the fleet. All ships are to proceed with maximum caution. Full shields, full weapons. And I want a complete sensor sweep of the space ahead of us. Yes, sir. The Zarati fleet entered the Kepler 442 system at exactly 1422, Galactic Standard Time. Supreme Commander Vexthal had spent the last 6 hours growing more nervous as scout group after scout group disappeared into empty space. But now, seeing the massive formation of his ships spreading across the star system, he felt his confidence returning. Fleet status report, he ordered. All ships present and accounted for, sir. 1,943 vessels in perfect formation. All weapons charged, all shields and maximum power. Vexthal nodded. Whatever had happened to his scouts, it didn't matter now. No force in the galaxy could stand against this much firepower. The humans would learn what happened to species who dared to defy the Zarati Empire. Sir, his sensor operator called out, I'm detecting human ships ahead. How many? Double quotes approximately 300, sir. They appear to be in defensive formation around the fourth planet. Vexthul laughed. 300 ships against almost 2,000. The humans really were as pathetic as he had thought. Signal the fleet. Begin the attack. But 50 light years away, Admiral Morrison was watching the same tactical display with very different thoughts. Her command center was buried deep beneath the Earth's surface, protected by layers of rock and energy shields. Around her, dozens of officers monitored displays showing every ship in the battle zone. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the Zarati fleet has entered the kill zone. All stealth ships are in position. All hidden weapons platforms are armed and ready. Morrison smiled coldly. The Zarati thought they were facing 300 human ships. In reality, they were surrounded by almost 10,000 vessels, most of them completely invisible to Zarati sensors. Begin the engagement, she ordered. What happened next would be remembered as the 8-minute war dot at 14 hours 22 minutes and 15 seconds. The first Zarati ships opened fire on what they thought was a small human defense fleet. Their weapons lit up space with brilliant flashes of energy dot at 14 hours 22 minutes and 16 seconds. The humans fired back. The difference was immediately obvious. The Zarati weapons were powerful, but they were based on technology that was 50 years old. The human weapons were something entirely new. Quantum torpedoes materialized inside Zarati ships, bypassing their shields completely. The alien vessels simply came apart from the inside, their hulls cracking open like broken eggs. Entire squadrons disappeared in seconds. What is happening? Vexthul screamed as explosions erupted throughout his fleet. Where are those weapons coming from? Unknown, sir. Our sensors show empty space, but something is firing at us from all directions. The truth was that humanity's stealth technology was far more advanced than anyone realized. While the Zarati could see the 300 human ships in front of them, they couldn't detect the thousands of cloaked vessels that surrounded them on all sides. Captain Rodriguez, flying her transformed exploration ship Wanderer, targeted a Zarati cruiser and fired. Her quantum cannon punched through the alien ship's armor like it was made of paper. The cruiser broke in half and exploded. Target destroyed, she reported, moving to next engagement zone. All around the battle area, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships that had pretended to be harmless for decades were revealing their true nature. The galaxy's most advanced weapon systems were being used in combat for the first time, but the real shock came when the hidden battle stations revealed themselves. Admiral, Morrison's weapons officer, announced, all gravitational. Platforms are ready to fire. Do it. Across the Kepler system, objects that had looked like asteroids suddenly powered up. They weren't asteroids at all. They were massive weapons platforms that could manipulate gravity itself. Gravitational waves rippled through space, crushing Zarati ships like tin cans. Entire formations were pulled apart by forces that no armor could resist. Some alien vessels were compressed into tiny balls of superdense matter. Others were stretched so thin that they simply came apart at the molecular level. Supreme Commander Vexthul watched in horror as his magnificent fleet was systematically destroyed around him. Ships that had never known defeat were being eliminated with ridiculous ease. Weapons that he didn't understand were tearing through formations that should have been unstoppable. "Sir," his communications officer shouted over the noise of exploding ships, "we're receiving surrender demands from the human fleet." "Surrender demands? From them?" "Yes, sir. They're offering to accept our unconditional surrender if we power down our weapons immediately." Vexthul couldn't believe what he was hearing. The humans were demanding his surrender? After everything he had said about wiping them out? Never. He roared. The Zarati Empire does not surrender. All ships continue the attack. But there wasn't much fleet left to continue anything. In the space of 4 minutes, over half of his ships had been destroyed. The survivors were scattered and confused, trying to fight enemies they couldn't even see. Captain Zhang Wei, still flying his disguised cargo ship Prosperity, activated the quantum torpedo launcher he had hidden on New Shanghai. The massive weapon fired a salvo of 12 torpedoes directly into the center of the Zarati formation. Each torpedo created a small artificial black hole when it exploded. The gravitational effects ripped apart everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. 50 Zarati ships vanished in an instant, sucked into tiny points of collapsed spacetime. Direct hit, Zhang reported calmly, reloading for second salvo. By 1426, the battle was essentially over. The Zarati fleet had been reduced to scattered groups of survivors trying desperately to escape. But the humans weren't letting anyone leave. All stealth squadrons, Admiral Morrison commanded, begin cleanup operations. I want every Zarati ship eliminated. The hunt that followed was methodical and brutal. Human stealth ships appeared behind fleeing Zarati vessels and destroyed them with single shots. There was no escape from weapons that could track targets through hyperspace and fire through dimensional barriers. Supreme Commander Vexthil found himself alone on his flagship, watching as the last of his arch ships were picked off by invisible enemies. His communications were filled with the final transmissions of dying Zarati crews. Command, this is Destroyer Squadron 12. We are under attack by unknown forces. Our weapons cannot help us. Something is cutting through our hull. Our shields are useless. They're everywhere. We can't see them, but they're everywhere. One by one, the voices went silent. At 1429, Vexthil's flagship was the only Zarati ship left in the system. The Supreme Commander sat in his command chair, staring at displays that showed nothing but empty space where his fleet had been. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, we're being targeted by multiple human vessels. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Vexthil laughed bitterly. After all his threats and boasting, it had come to this. His entire fleet had been destroyed in 8 minutes by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive and weak. Sir, what are your orders? Vexthil looked around his bridge at the faces of his surviving crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders that would probably get them all killed. Open a channel to the human fleet, he said finally. Yes, sir. A face appeared on his main screen. Admiral Morrison herself, calling from her command center. On Earth, she looked exactly like what she was. A military commander who had just won the most decisive victory in galactic history. Supreme Commander Vexthil, she said calmly, you have exactly 30 seconds to power down all weapons and surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, your ship will be destroyed. Vexthil stared at her. How? He asked. How did you hide such a fleet? Our intelligence said you had only 300 ships. Morrison smiled. Your intelligence was very good, Commander. We did have 300 ships in 2195. We've been building in secret for 50 years. Impossible. We would have detected construction on this scale. You detected exactly what we wanted you to detect. Your time is up, Commander. Surrender or die. Vexthil closed his eyes. The great Zarati Empire, conqueror of 12 star systems, had been defeated by a species they had dismissed as harmless primitives. I surrender, he said quietly. At 1430 Galactic Standard Time, exactly 8 minutes after the battle began, the last Zarati ship powered down its weapons. The most powerful military fleet in the galaxy had been completely destroyed without a single human casualty. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives from dozens of species watched the live broadcast in stunned silence. The humans hadn't. Just one. They had won so easily that it looked like a training exercise rather than a real battle. Ambassador Chun stood up slowly. As you can see, she said to the shocked aliens around her, humanity's military capabilities may have been somewhat underestimated. The Altarian ambassador found his voice first. Sarah ... How many ships do you really have? Chun smiled. Enough. She didn't tell them about the hundreds of additional fleets that were still hidden throughout human space. She didn't mention the planet-killing weapons that had never been deployed. She didn't explain that what they had just witnessed was only a small demonstration of humanity's true power. The galaxy had just learned that Earth's children were not as helpless as they appeared. The question now was what the other species would do with that knowledge that the age of underestimating humanity was over forever. 3 days after the 8-minute war, the Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than it had ever been. Representatives from every known species had come to witness what many were calling the most important session in galactic history. Balance of power had shifted completely, and everyone wanted to understand what it meant for the future. Ambassador Sarah Chun walked to the center of the chamber with calm confidence. Around her, dozens of alien eyes watched her every move. These were the same beings who had looked at her with pity just a few days ago. Now they looked at her with something very different, a mixture of respect, fear, and curiosity. Distinguished representatives, Chun began, I have been asked to address several questions about recent events. I am happy to provide answers within reason. The Altarian ambassador was the first to speak. His tall, graceful people had been humanity's closest allies for 20 years, but even he seemed shaken by what he had witnessed. Ambassador Chun, my government needs to understand how humanity was able to hide such massive military capabilities for so long. Our intelligence services had no idea you possessed anything close to what we saw 3 days ago. Chun nodded. That was the entire point, Ambassador. We wanted no one to know our true capabilities until we were forced to reveal them. But why? The crystalline Vorthik, Representative chimed. Why hide such strength? With that kind of fleet, humanity could have dominated the galaxy decades ago. Because we didn't want to dominate the galaxy, Chun replied simply. We wanted to live in peace with our neighbors. We hoped that by appearing weak and harmless, we could avoid conflicts like the one the Zarati forced upon us. The massive Threnody representative rumbled like a small earthquake. You deliberately appeared weaker than you were? This seems ... unusual. Chun smiled. Perhaps it seems unusual to species that believe strength should always be displayed openly. But humans have learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes from being underestimated by your enemies. A new voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. It belonged to Ambassador Cathvar of the Hegemony Coalition, a group of aggressive species that had been expanding their territory for years. Ambassador Chun, the Coalition demands to know the full extent of human military capabilities. What we witnessed 3 days ago suggests that humanity may pose a threat to galactic stability. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Chun turned to face Cathvar directly, and her expression was no longer friendly. Ambassador Cathvar, humanity poses no threat to any species that does not first threaten us. However, any species that does threaten human colonies or human citizens will discover exactly what the Zarati discovered. Are you threatening the Coalition? I am stating a fact. Humanity has spent 50 years preparing to defend itself against aggressive neighbors. We hoped we would never need to use those preparations. The Zarati proved us wrong. Cathvar's 4 eyes blazed with anger. The Coalition has legitimate territorial claims that may conflict with human expansion. Are you saying humanity will use military force to settle such disputes? Chun's voice became very quiet and very cold. I am saying that humanity will respond to threats with whatever force is necessary to protect our people. If the coalition wishes to pursue territorial disputes through peaceful negotiation, we are happy to talk. If the coalition prefers the Zarati approach, ... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The Altarian ambassador quickly stepped in before the situation could escalate further. Perhaps we should focus on more constructive questions. Ambassador Chun, what happens to the Zarati Empire now? Chun's expression softened slightly. The Zarati homeworlds have formally surrendered. Their government has agreed to pay reparations for the unprovoked attack on human territory. More importantly, they have agreed to fundamental changes in their society. What kind of changes? The Zarati military will be reduced to defensive forces only. Their government will be restructured to include representatives from the species they previously conquered. And they will begin the process of granting independence to their subject worlds. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. Several representatives had expected the humans to simply destroy the Zarati Empire entirely. You are not demanding their complete submission? The Vorthik asked. We are not conquerors, Shun replied firmly. We defeated the Zarati to defend ourselves, not to enslave them. We believe that reformed enemies can become better neighbors than destroyed enemies. Supreme Commander Vexthul, who had been brought to the council station as a prisoner, spoke for the first time. The proud Zarati warrior looked broken and exhausted. The human fleet could have destroyed every Zarati world, he said quietly. Instead, they offer us a chance to rebuild as a peaceful civilization. This is not what the Zarati Empire would have done in their place. Chun looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. Commander, your people made a mistake. They confused peaceful intentions with weakness. But mistakes can be corrected if the will exists to do so. And if the Zarati refuse these terms? Chun's expression became stone-cold serious. Then the Zarati Empire will cease to exist. The simple statement sent chills through the chamber. Everyone present understood that humanity had demonstrated the power to make good on such a threat. The session continued for several more hours as representatives asked questions about everything from human technology to human intentions. Chun answered most of them honestly, but she was careful not to reveal too much about humanity's true capabilities. She didn't mention that the fleet the galaxy had witnessed was only one of 12 such formations. She didn't explain that humans had developed weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. She didn't reveal that human intelligence services had been monitoring every major government in the galaxy for decades. Some secrets were still worth keeping. As the session finally ended, Chun found herself approached by the Altarian ambassador. His expression was troubled. Sarah, I have to ask, are we still allies? After everything that has happened? Chun smiled genuinely for the first time all day. Of course we are, Ambassador. Nothing has changed in humanity's desire for friendship with peaceful species. We simply revealed that we are capable of defending ourselves and our friends if necessary. But you hid so much from us. For so many years, we hid our military capabilities. We never hid our values or our intentions. The humans who befriended the Altarians 20 years ago are the same humans who defeated the Zarati 3 days ago. We simply showed different sides of our nature when the situation required it. The Altarian considered this for a long moment. And what happens now? How does the galaxy adjust to this new reality? Chun looked out through the chamber's massive viewing windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human fleets were patrolling space that had been free of major conflicts for 3 days. Other species were reconsidering their expansion plans. The aggressive powers that had been building up their militaries were suddenly wondering if their weapons would be effective against human technology. Now, Chun said quietly, we see if the galaxy has learned the right lesson from what happened to the Zarati. And what lesson is that? That humanity prefers peace, but we are very, very good at war. 1 month later, the changes were already visible throughout the galaxy. The Hegemony Coalition had quietly abandoned their planned invasion of 3 neutral systems. The Mordic pirates had suddenly become much less aggressive in their raids on shipping lanes. Several minor conflicts that had been brewing for years were suddenly being resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. Ambassador Chun sat in her office on the council station, reading reports from across human space. The news was encouraging. For the first time in decades, galactic civilization seemed to be moving toward peace rather than conflict. A communication signal chimed, indicating an incoming message. Chun activated the display to see Admiral Morrison's face. "Admiral, good to see you. How are the fleet exercises going?" "Very well, Ambassador. The new recruits are adapting quickly to our advanced systems. More importantly, we've detected significant reductions in military buildups across the galaxy. It seems that our demonstration has had the desired effect." "Excellent. Any signs of new threats developing?" Morrison smiled grimly. "Nothing we can't handle. Several species have attempted to probe our defensive networks, but they haven't found anything. As far as the galaxy knows, the fleet they witnessed represents our full capabilities." "Good. How many governments have requested diplomatic meetings this week?" 17. "Everyone wants to improve their relationship with humanity all of a sudden." Chun laughed. "Fear has a way of encouraging diplomacy. But I think some of these requests are genuine. The Vorthik, for instance, seem genuinely interested in cultural exchange programs. And the others? The others are trying to figure out if they can afford to be our enemies." Morrison nodded. "Well, they've seen what happens to species that threaten us. Hopefully, that will be enough to keep the peace." "Admiral, do you think we did the right thing, revealing our capabilities so dramatically?" Morrison was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "Ambassador, for 50 years, we tried to maintain peace through diplomacy and goodwill. It worked with some species, but others saw our peaceful nature." Captain Elena Vasquez stared at the empty coffee cup on the kitchen table. Steam still rose from the dark liquid inside. The cup sat next to a half-eaten piece of toast with jam. A child's drawing lay beside it, showing a stick-figure family under a yellow sun, but no one was there. Elena walked through the silent house on New Carthage Colony. Her boots made loud sounds on the wooden floor. Each room told the same story. People had been living here just minutes ago, but now they were gone. She stepped outside into the main street of Harmony Town. The settlement had 200,000 people yesterday. Today, it was empty. Cars sat in the middle of the road with their doors open. A dog ran up to her, wagging its tail. It was the only living thing she had seen since landing. "This doesn't make sense," Elena said into her radio. Her ship, the Meridian, waited in orbit above the planet. There should be people everywhere. Where did they all go? Her first officer, James Park, answered from the ship. "Captain, we're not picking up any life signs down there. No human readings at all." Elena walked to the town center. A playground sat empty. Swings moved slowly in the wind. A sandbox had fresh footprints in it. Toys were scattered on the ground, like children had just been playing with them. She picked up a small red truck from the sand. It was still warm from the sun. Her hands shook. As she held it, "Captain?" James called on the radio. "Are you okay down there?" "No," Elena said quietly. "I'm not okay. Something terrible happened here." She had been a space captain for 15 years. She had seen many strange things in the galaxy. But this was different. This felt wrong in a way that made her skin crawl. Elena walked to the edge of town. That was where she found the first strange marks. They were burned into the ground in perfect shapes. Circles, triangles, and squares arranged in rows. Each mark was exactly the same size. Each one was exactly the same distance from the others. The burn marks went on for miles. They covered the entire area around the town like a giant pattern, drawn by something that loved straight lines and perfect angles. "James, are you seeing this from orbit?" Elena asked. She stood in the middle of the burned field. "Yes, Captain. The whole planet is covered with those marks. Every continent. They're everywhere humans lived." Elena felt cold despite the warmth. "Son, what about the other colonies? Have we heard from New Eden? Haven Prime?" A long pause. Then James spoke in a quiet voice. "Captain, we haven't heard from any of the outer colonies in 3 weeks. Command thought it was just equipment problems." "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," Elena ordered. "Now." While she waited, Elena walked back through the empty town. She tried to understand what she was seeing. There were no signs of fighting. No broken windows or damaged buildings. No bodies. No blood. The people had just disappeared. She stopped at a small cafe. The door was open. Inside, plates of food sat on tables. The food was still warm. In the kitchen, a pot of soup bubbled. On the stove, someone had been cooking lunch when it happened. "Captain, I have Admiral Morrison on the line," James reported. Elena sat down at one of the empty tables. "Admiral, this is Captain Vasquez. We have a serious problem out here." "Captain, your report says the entire new Carthage colony is missing." "That's impossible. 200,000 people don't just vanish." "Sir, I'm looking at empty plates with warm food on them. I'm looking at toys that children were playing with an hour ago. But there are no people. None. They're all gone." The Admiral was quiet for a moment. "Captain, we've lost contact with 12 outer rim colonies in the past month. We thought it was solar storms affecting communications. It's not solar storms, sir. Something took these people. All of them." Elena stood up and walked to the cafe window. She could see the burned marks stretching across the landscape. They looked like a message written in a language she didn't understand. "Sir, there are strange patterns burned into the ground. Perfect. Geometric shapes. They cover the entire planet wherever humans lived." "Geometric shapes?" The Admiral's voice sounded worried now. "Captain, I want you to document everything. Take pictures. Collect samples. Then get out of there immediately." "Understood, sir." "But what do I tell the families back on Earth? These people have relatives who are waiting for messages from them." Another long pause. "We tell them the truth, Captain. We don't know what happened. But we're going to find out." Elena spent the next 6 hours exploring the empty colony. Every building told the same story. People had been living normal lives right up until the moment they disappeared. In one house, she found a birthday cake with 6 candles on it. The candles had burned down to small stubs. A child had been about to blow out their birthday candles. When it happened in another house, she found a woman's diary. The last entry was dated yesterday. It talked about plans for the weekend. Plans to visit friends, plans to plant a garden. Plans that would never happen now. Elena took pictures of everything. The empty streets, the abandoned cars, the perfect burn marks, the still warm food. All of it felt like evidence of something impossible. As the sun began to set, she walked back to her landing shuttle. The dog that had found her earlier followed. Behind, it seemed to understand that she was the only human left on the entire planet. "I can't leave you here," Elena said to the dog. She picked it up. It was a small brown dog with kind eyes. "You're coming with me." Back on the Meridian, Elena sat in her captain's chair and looked at the data they had collected. James had scanned the entire planet from orbit. The results were clear and terrifying. 200,000 people lived on this planet yesterday, James reported. Today, there are none. No human life signs anywhere. But everything else is normal, Elena said. Plants, animals, insects, everything except humans. Whatever did this, it only wanted humans. Elena thought about the perfect burn marks, about the empty houses with warm food still on the tables, about the children's toys scattered in the playground. Something had come to New Carthage and taken every human being. Something that was very careful and very precise. Set course for Earth, Elena ordered. Maximum speed. Captain, what do we tell command? Elena looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, something was hunting humans. Something that could make entire populations disappear without a trace. We tell them that we're not alone in the galaxy, Elena said, and whatever else is out here doesn't want us to exist. The Meridian turned away from New Carthage and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, an empty world spun in space, covered with geometric burn marks that looked like the signature of something that valued perfect order above all, else not something that saw humans as a problem to be solved. 3 months later, Earth's greatest minds still had no answers. Dr. Marcus Webb sat in the emergency meeting room deep under Geneva. Around the table sat generals, scientists, and politicians from every nation on Earth. They all looked tired and scared. 17 colonies, Dr. Webb said, reading from his tablet. 17 human settlements, completely empty. Over 3 million people, gone without a trace. Admiral Morrison leaned forward. Tell them about the latest incident. Dr. Webb switched to a new screen. Yesterday, we lost contact with Kepler Station. It's our biggest research facility outside the solar system. 50,000 scientists and support staff. Any survivors? Asked General Chun. Captain Vasquez is investigating. Now. But based on the pattern, Doctor. Webb shook his head. We don't expect to find anyone. Far away in space, Elena walked through the empty corridors of Kepler Station. The research facility was huge, with laboratories and living quarters for tens of thousands of people. Now it was silent as a tomb, but this time was different. This time, Elena wasn't alone. Captain, called Lieutenant Sarah Kim from down the hall. You need to see this. Elena hurried to where Sarah stood outside a laboratory. Through the glass window, they could see something impossible. In the center of the room floated a crystal, the size of a person. It glowed with soft blue light and made a humming sound that seemed to go right through Elena's bones. That wasn't here in any of the station reports, Elena said. This is new. Sarah checked her scanner. It's giving off massive energy readings, but it's not radioactive. It's something else entirely. As they watched, the crystal began to change. The blue light grew brighter. The humming sound got louder. Then, something began to form inside the crystal. It looked like electricity, but electricity that could think. Back away, Elena ordered, slowly. The thing inside the crystal seemed to notice them. The electrical patterns moved faster. The light pulsed like a heartbeat. Then a voice filled their minds, not heard through their ears, but felt directly in their thoughts. Imperfect, chaotic, must be corrected. Elena grabbed Sarah's arm. Run! They sprinted down the corridor as more crystals began appearing throughout the station. Each one contained the same electrical being. Each one hummed with the same terrible purpose. Captain, Sarah shouted, look behind us. Elena turned to see the walls themselves beginning to change. Metal turned to crystal. Straight lines became perfect geometric patterns. Everything human-made was being erased and replaced with something alien and precise. They reached their shuttle just as the entire station began to transform. Elena fired up the engines and pulled away from Kepler Station as fast as she could. From space, they watched the research facility become something else entirely. The messy, practical human architecture melted away. In its place grew a perfect crystal city with flawless symmetry and mathematical beauty. "My God," Sarah whispered. "They're not just taking our people. They're taking our places, too." Back on Earth, the emergency meeting continued. Elena's report had reached them through quantum communication. "So now we know what we're dealing with," Admiral Morrison said. "They call themselves the architects. They're beings of pure energy that live inside crystal structures." Dr. Webb pulled up new data. "Our analysis suggests they've been doing this for millions of years. We found traces of their geometric patterns on dead worlds throughout the galaxy. What do they want with us?" asked General Chun. "They don't want anything from us, Doctor." Webb replied, "They want us gone. They see organic life as messy, imperfect, something to be cleaned up." President Martinez, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. "What happened to our people? Are they dead?" Dr. Webb hesitated. "We don't think so. Energy readings suggest they're being held somewhere. Stored, maybe, but we don't know where or why." Admiral Morrison stood up. "It doesn't matter. These things are moving toward Earth. We have maybe 6 months before they reach the solar system. We need to stop them. How do we fight beings made of energy?" General Chun asked. "We tried conventional weapons at Proxima Station," Admiral Morrison said grimly. Admiral Chun's entire battle fleet. 20 ships, 10,000 crew members. The architects dissolved them in minutes. Broke them apart at the atomic level. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Humanity's greatest weapons were useless. Dr. Webb cleared his throat. "There might be another way. We've been studying the patterns they leave behind. The geometric burn marks. They're not random. They follow mathematical rules. Perfect mathematical rules. So the architects think in patterns. Everything they do follows logical, predictable sequences. But humans... Dr. Webb smiled for the first time in months. "Humans are chaotic. We're unpredictable. We don't follow the rules." President Martinez leaned forward. "Are you saying our chaos is a weapon?" "I'm saying it might be our only weapon." Meanwhile, Elena and Sarah flew their shuttle toward a secret research base hidden in the asteroid belt. Dr. Sarah Chun, Admiral Chun's sister, had been working on something in the shadows. Something the architects couldn't predict or understand. The base was called Haven Point. It was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, hidden from sensors. As Elena docked her shuttle, she saw other ships arriving. Scientists, soldiers, and civilians who had escaped from the lost colonies. All of them looking for a way to fight back. Dr. Sarah Chun met them at the airlock. She was a small woman with intense eyes and hands that shook from too much caffeine and too little sleep. "Captain Vasquez," she said, "I've been waiting for you. We need to talk about what you saw at Kepler Station." They walked through corridors carved out of rock. The base looked nothing like the perfect crystal cities the architects built. It was rough, practical, and completely human. "The architects have one weakness," Dr. Chun explained as they walked. "They can't process true randomness. Their minds are like computers. They think in patterns and equations. But human consciousness... human emotions. They create quantum. Static that interferes with their calculations." Elena frowned. "Quantum static? Think of it like this. The architects see the universe as a perfect machine. But humans are like sand in the gears. We create uncertainty, chaos, things they can't predict or control." They entered a laboratory where dozens of scientists worked on strange devices. The machines looked like a cross between computers and musical instruments. They hummed and sparked, with energy that felt oddly familiar. "We call them chaos engines," Dr. Chun said. "They amplify human consciousness and turn it into a weapon." But double quotes. "But what?" Dr. Chun's face became sad. The process burns out the operator's mind. Using one of these machines is a death sentence, but it might be the only way to hurt the architects. Elena stared at the machines. They looked so simple, just metal and crystal and wires. But they represented humanity's last hope, and the price for using them was everything. "How many do you have?" Elena asked. 50 so far. We're building more as fast as we can, but we need volunteers to operate them. People willing to give up their lives for a chance to hit back. Elena thought about the empty colonies, about the children's toys in the playground, about the birthday cake with burned-down candles. "Where do I sign up?" she said. Dr. Chun shook her head. "You're too valuable alive, Captain. We need you to coordinate the attack, but thank you for volunteering." Around the laboratory, Elena saw the faces of other volunteers, young and old, military and civilian. All of them had the same look in their eyes. They had all lost something to the architects, and they were all ready to lose everything else to stop them. Outside the asteroid base, space looked peaceful. Stars twinkled in the darkness. But Elena knew that somewhere out there, crystal ships were moving toward Earth, moving with perfect mathematical precision toward the home of 3 billion human beings. The architects thought they were cleaning up the galaxy. They thought organic life was a mistake to be corrected, but they had never faced anything like humanity before. They had never faced a species that turned chaos into strength, that made weapons out of unpredictability. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. 6 weeks before the architects reached Earth, humanity's hidden war began. Elena stood in the command center of Haven Point, watching dozens of screens show the galaxy around them. Red dots marked places where human colonies used to be. Blue dots showed where the architects were now. The blue dots were getting closer to Earth every day. "Status report," Elena called out. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, now Elena's second in command, looked up from her station. "We have chaos engines operational in 43 locations. Underground bases, hidden ships, even some built into the empty colonies." Dr. Sarah Chun walked over with a tablet full of data. "We've got 500 volunteers trained and ready. But Elena, I have to tell you something. The test runs are getting worse." Elena felt her stomach drop. "Worse how?" "The neural feedback is stronger than we thought. Some operators are dying before they can even fire the engines. Their minds can't handle the quantum load. But the ones who do fire them," Dr. Chun nodded slowly, "they're doing damage. Real damage. We hit an architect scout ship near Titan yesterday. The entire crystal structure just stopped working. But Marcus died instantly. Complete brain death." Elena closed her eyes. Marcus had been a young scientist from New Eden Colony. He volunteered after his family disappeared. Like so many others, he wanted revenge more than he wanted to live. "Show me the recording," Elena said. On the main screen, they watched the attack. Marcus sat connected to a chaos engine, his face peaceful but determined. When he activated the machine, the air around him shimmered with strange energy. The energy reached out across space toward the architect ship. The crystal ship had been moving in a perfect straight line, following mathematical precision. But when the chaos energy hit it, the ship began to wobble. Its perfect patterns flickered. Then, suddenly, it went dark and dead. But Marcus was dead too. The machine had burned through his brain like fire through paper. "How many more volunteers do we have?" Elena asked quietly. "Too many," Dr. Chun replied. "Word is spreading through the underground networks. People are coming from all over human space. Families who lost loved ones to the architects. Soldiers who saw their friends disappear. They all want to fight." Elena walked to the observation deck. Through the thick glass, she could see Earth in the distance. It looked so small and blue and precious. 3 billion people lived on that world. Most of them didn't even know the architects existed yet. The governments of Earth were trying to keep it secret. They said they didn't want to cause panic. But Elena knew the real reason. They didn't want people to know how helpless they were. "Captain," Sarah Kim called from behind her. "We're getting a message from the Titan base. They want to try something new." Elena hurried back to the command center. On screen was Commander Jake Morrison, Admiral Morrison's son. He had set up a Chaos Engine base on one of Saturn's moons. "Elena, we've been studying the quantum patterns," Jake said. "Dr. Chun was right about the architects thinking in mathematics. But we found something else. They don't just think in patterns. They are patterns." "What do you mean?" Jake's image flickered as he adjusted his equipment. "The architects aren't really alive the way we understand life. They're like living equations. Mathematical formulas that gained consciousness millions of years ago." Dr. Chun leaned closer to the screen. "That would explain why they can't understand chaos. Mathematics can't process true randomness." "Exactly," Jake continued. "But here's the interesting part. When we hit them with chaos energy, we're not just damaging them. We're teaching them something they've never experienced before. Uncertainty." Elena frowned. "Teaching them? Think about it. These beings have existed for millions of years in perfect order. They've never felt confusion or doubt or fear. But our chaos engines are forcing them to experience these things for the first time." On another screen, Elena could see the readings from their latest attacks. Each time they hit an architect ship, there was a brief moment where the alien patterns seemed to ... hesitate. "It's like they're learning to be afraid." Dr. Chun whispered. "Over the next week, the attacks increased. Human volunteers across the galaxy connected to chaos engines and burned out their minds to strike at the architects. Each attack was small, but together they were having an effect. The architect fleet slowed down. Instead of moving in perfect formation, some ships began to spread out. Some even changed course slightly, as if they were ... nervous. Elena received reports from all over human space. On Mars, a young woman named Lisa destroyed 3 architect probes before the machine killed her. On Europa, an elderly man named Frederick took out an entire crystal research facility. On Proxima Centauri, twin brothers named David and Daniel synchronized their chaos engines and eliminated a whole squadron of architect ships. Each victory cost a human life. Each success meant another family lost someone they loved. But for the first time since the war began, humanity was fighting back. Elena stood in the briefing room, looking at the faces of her team. They were all volunteers who had lost someone to the architects. Sarah Kim had lost her parents on Haven Prime. Dr. Chun had lost her husband on New Carthage. Lieutenant Torres had lost his entire unit at Proxima Station. "The architects will reach Earth in 3 weeks, Elena said. "Our attacks are slowing them down, but not stopping them. We need to do something bigger." Dr. Chun pulled up a holographic map of the solar system. "We've been thinking about that. What if we don't try to stop them? What if we try to change them? Change them how? Every chaos engine attack teaches them a little bit about uncertainty, about fear, about confusion. These are emotions they've never felt before. What if we could teach them something else?" Elena stared at the map. "Like what?" "Like what it feels like to be alive. Really alive. Not just a perfect equation, but a messy, chaotic, beautiful living being." Sarah Kim looked up from her station. "That would require a massive chaos engine. Something 100 times more powerful than anything we've built. And it would kill whoever operates it," Dr. Chun added quietly. "Not just burn out their mind. It would completely destroy them." Elena walked to the window again. Earth looked so peaceful from here. But in 3 weeks, crystal ships would arrive in Earth's orbit. They would scan the planet with mathematical precision, and then they would begin the process of correcting 3 billion human lives, unless someone stopped them. How big would this chaos engine need to be? Elena asked. Dr. Chun checked her calculations. We'd need to link together every chaos engine we have, all 43 of them, and we'd need to channel them through one person who would die, one person who would cease to exist. Not just death, Elena, complete dissolution. Nothing would be left. Elena thought about the empty colonies, about the children who would never grow up, about the families who would never be reunited, about the future that humanity might never have. I'll do it, she said. No, Dr. Chun said immediately. Elena, you're our leader. We need you. You need someone who can handle the chaos load without breaking. Someone who's seen what the architects do to our people. Someone who understands what we're fighting for. Elena turned to face her team. I've walked through empty colonies. I've seen the burn marks they leave behind. I've felt their cold mathematical hatred. If one person has to die to save 3 billion others, then that's what we do. Sarah Kim stood up. Captain, let me do it instead. You have more experience. No. Elena's voice was firm but kind. This is my choice, my responsibility. Doctor. Chun was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. If you're really going to do this, we need to start preparations now. Building a chaos engine this size will take everything we have. Over the next 2 weeks, the underground resistance worked faster than they ever had before. Scientists and engineers from across human space sent components to Haven Point. Volunteers who had planned to operate smaller chaos engines instead donated their machines to the project. The master chaos engine grew larger every day. It filled an entire section of the asteroid base. Cables and crystals and quantum processors all connected to a single chair in the center. Alana's chair dot as the architect fleet approached Earth. Elena sat in that chair for the first time. The machine hummed around her, waiting. She could feel its power like electricity in her bones. Are you ready? Dr. Chun asked. Elena looked at the screens showing Earth, her home, humanity's home. In a few hours, crystal ships would arrive there. They would begin the work of turning her chaotic, beautiful, messy species into something perfect and dead, unless she stopped them. I'm ready, Alana said. The war for humanity's soul was about to reach its climax. The architect fleet appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like a geometric nightmare. Hundreds of crystal ships moved in perfect formation, each one the size of a city. They reflected the light of the sun in patterns too precise for human eyes to follow comfortably. Elena watched them approach from her command chair in the master chaos engine. Around her, the enormous machine hummed with enough power to light up a planet. Cables ran from the chair to her arms, her spine, her skull. She could feel the quantum energy waiting to pour through her mind. Fleet deployment confirmed, Sarah Kim reported from her station. 437 ships. They're arranging themselves in a perfect sphere around Earth. Dr. Chun checked her instruments. Elena, the chaos engine is ready, but I have to warn you one more time. When you activate this thing, the feedback will kill you instantly. There won't be any pain, but there also won't be any coming back. Elena nodded. She had made peace with her choice weeks ago. How long until they begin the cleansing process? Based on their pattern at other colonies, about 6 hours. They'll scan Earth first, map every human settlement, and start the erasure process. 6 hours. Elena closed her eyes and thought about her childhood on Earth, running through fields of grass, swimming in the ocean, eating ice cream on hot summer days. All the messy, imperfect, wonderful moments that made life worth living. "Captain," Lieutenant Torres called out from communications. "We're receiving surrender demands from Earth Command. They want all military forces to stand down." Elena opened her eyes. "What?" "Admiral Morrison is ordering all ships to retreat. He says fighting is useless and will only make the architects angry." "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," Elena ordered. A few minutes later, Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired and defeated. "Captain Vasquez, I'm ordering you to abandon your position and return to Earth immediately." "Sir, we have a weapon that can stop them." "Captain, I've seen the reports on your Chaos engines. Yes, they can damage individual ships, but there are hundreds of them, and each attack costs a human life. I won't sacrifice more people for a hopeless cause." Elena felt anger burning in her chest. "Sir, with respect, 3 billion people on Earth are about to die. If we don't fight now, there won't be anyone left to surrender. The architects have sent us a message, Captain. They're offering to preserve human consciousness in their crystal matrices. We would exist as pure thought, without the chaos and suffering of biological life. It might not be death. It might be evolution." Elena stared at the Admiral in disbelief. "Sir, have you seen what they've done to our colonies? They don't preserve anything. They erase us and replace us with perfect geometric patterns. Captain, that's an order. Stand down immediately." Elena reached over and cut the transmission. Around her, the command crew looked shocked. "Ma'am," Sarah Kim said quietly, "you just disobeyed a direct order from Earth Command." "Then I guess I'm not in the Earth military anymore," Elena replied. "Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle back to Earth. No judgment. But I'm going to fight." Nobody moved. Dr. Chun smiled grimly. "Elena, we've all lost too much to quit now." The next few hours passed slowly. Earth's military forces retreated as ordered. The planet's defense stations powered down. Humanity's leaders prepared to surrender to the architects without firing a single shot. But in hidden bases throughout the solar system, the underground resistance prepared for battle. "Chaos engine status report," Elena called out. Dr. Chan checked her boards. "All 43 engines are online and connected. The quantum field is stable. We have volunteers standing by at every location." Elena activated her communication system. Across human space, in asteroid bases and hidden bunkers and abandoned colonies, 500 resistance fighters heard her voice. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez," she said. "In 1 hour, we begin Operation Pandemonium. Some of you are going to die today. All of you are going to save humanity." On the main screen, Elena could see the architect ships beginning their scan of Earth. Geometric patterns of light swept across the planet's surface. The aliens were mapping every city, every town, every place where humans lived. "They're beautiful," Sarah Kim said quietly, watching the light patterns. "Yes," Elena agreed, "and they're going to kill everyone we've ever loved." The hour passed too quickly. Elena watched the countdown timer reach 0. Then she activated the communication system. One last time. "All stations, this is Phoenix Command. Operation Pandemonium is go. Execute on my mark." She paused, thinking of all the brave people about to sacrifice themselves for strangers they would never meet. Mark, across the solar system, Chaos engines activated simultaneously. On Mars, in the asteroid belt, on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, human volunteers connected their minds to quantum machines and burned out their brains in flashes of pure chaos. The effect was immediate. Architect ships throughout the solar system began to wobble. Their perfect formations broke apart. Some ships stopped moving entirely. Others spun in confused circles. "It's working!" Dr. Chun shouted. "They can't process this much chaos at once." But the victory was temporary. After a few minutes, the architects began to adapt. Their ships were formed into new patterns. They learned to expect the unexpected. "Elena," Dr. Chun said urgently, "they're fighting back." On the screens, Elena could see architect ships targeting the Chaos Engine bases. Beams of perfect mathematical energy reached out and dissolved entire asteroids. Hidden bunkers were discovered and erased. Resistance fighters died by the hundreds. "They're finding our people too fast," Sarah Kim reported. "We're losing bases faster than we can hurt them." Elena watched her brave volunteers disappear one by one. Each loss was a name she knew, a face she remembered. People who had trusted her to lead them to victory. "Mom," Lieutenant Torres called out, "the architects are moving toward Earth. They're giving up on hunting us. They're going to start the cleansing process now." Elena felt desperation rising in her throat. The plan was failing. Her people were dying for nothing. Earth was about to be cleansed anyway. "Elena," Dr. Chon said softly, "it's time. If we're going to use the Master Chaos Engine, it has to be now." Elena looked at the quantum cables attached to her body. The Master Chaos Engine had enough power to create a chaos field around the entire Earth. It might be enough to protect the planet, but it would definitely be enough to kill her. "Do it," she said. Dr. Chun's hands moved across the control panels. Quantum field building. Neural link established. "Elena, in 30 seconds, this machine is going to pour the consciousness of 500 resistance fighters through your mind. The chaos will be ... not enormous." Elena felt the power building around her. It was like standing in the middle of a thunderstorm made of human emotions. Fear, anger, love, hope, desperation, and determination all mixed together into something the architects could never understand. 20 seconds. Dr. Chun announced. Elena thought about her parents, who had died when she was young. She thought about her friends at the Space Academy. She thought about every person she had ever loved, or laughed with, or cried beside. 10 seconds. She thought about the empty playground on New Carthage, about the birthday cake with burned down candles, about all the children who would never grow up if she failed. 5 seconds, Elena smiled. Tell Earth that we tried. 3.2.1. The Master Chaos Engine activated. Elena screamed as the minds of 500 humans poured through her consciousness. Their memories, their emotions, they're chaotic. Human thoughts crashed into her brain like a tsunami of pure life. But something went wrong. The chaos was too much, too powerful. Instead of just affecting the Earth, it spread throughout the entire solar system. It reached out to touch every architect ship, every crystal matrix, every mathematical mind got, and for the first time in millions of years, the architects felt something they had never experienced before. They felt doubt. They felt fear. They felt the terrible, wonderful chaos of being truly alive. Elena felt her mind dissolving under the quantum load. But as she died, she heard something impossible. She heard the architects screaming. Not in pain, but in confusion and terror and something. That might have been ... wonder. The Master Chaos Engine burned out every circuit in Elena's brain. But its effect rippled across space, teaching an entire species of mathematical beings what it meant to feel. Elena Vasquez died saving humanity. But she also did something else. She reminded the galaxy's most perfect killers what they had lost when they chose order over life. The chaos wave hit the architect fleet like a storm of impossible thoughts. For the first time in millions of years, perfect mathematical minds experienced uncertainty. Ships that had moved in flawless formation suddenly wobbled through space. Crystal matrices that had calculated the exact position of every atom in the universe found themselves unable to predict what would happen next. In the command center of the lead architect vessel, the entity that served as their coordinator struggled with sensations it had no words for. The being existed as pure energy within a crystal matrix the size of a building. For eons, it had experienced only perfect order and mathematical certainty. Now it felt something new, something terrifying and wonderful and impossible to calculate. It felt alive. Dr. Sarah Chun watched the readings from Haven Point's damaged sensors. Elena was dead. The master chaos engine had burned out completely. But the effect of her sacrifice rippled across the solar system like a wave of pure human consciousness. "My God," Sarah Kim whispered, staring at the screens. "Look at them." The architect ships were no longer moving in formation. Some had stopped completely. Others spun in slow circles, as if their pilots were confused. A few had even begun to change shape, their perfect crystal structures becoming more organic, more chaotic. "Are they retreating?" Lieutenant Torres asked. "No," Dr. Chun said, studying the energy readings. They single quotes thinking. For the first time in millions of years, they're actually thinking instead of just calculating. On Earth, the governments that had ordered surrender watched in amazement as the alien fleet simply stopped its attack. The geometric scanning beams shut off. The cleansing process that should have begun never started. Instead, something else began to happen. The architect ships began to sing. It started as a low harmonic vibration that could be felt rather than heard, but slowly, the mathematical tones became more complex, more emotional. The perfect mathematical beings were learning to express feelings they had never experienced before. In the lead ship, the coordinator entity struggled with memories that weren't its own. The chaos wave had carried with it the thoughts and emotions of 500 human resistance fighters. Now those messy, imperfect, beautiful human experiences crashed through its crystal mind like waves against a shore. It remembered Elena's childhood summers. It felt Sarah Kim's grief for her lost parents. It experienced Dr. Chun's desperate hope that science could save everyone she loved. Hundreds of human memories and emotions swirled through its consciousness. And for the first time in eons, the coordinator remembered what it had been like to be alive. Millions of years ago, the beings that became the architects had been organic, creatures on a world of chaos and beauty. They had felt the warmth of sunlight on their skin. They had known the joy of discovery and the pain of loss. They had lived and loved and died in the messy, imperfect way that all living things do. They had grown tired of suffering, tired of uncertainty, tired of death. So they had uploaded their consciousness into crystal matrices and abandoned their biological forms. They had chosen perfect order over chaotic life. Over time, they had forgotten what they had given up. They had become so focused on mathematical perfection that they couldn't remember why chaos had once seemed beautiful. They saw organic life as a disease to be cured, not understanding that they were trying to cure themselves of the very thing that had made them real. But Elena's sacrifice had forced them to remember. The coordinator sent a communication pulse to the human resistance base. Not the mathematical commands it usually transmitted, but something new. Something that tried to express the impossible emotions flowing through its crystal mind. Dr. Chun received the transmission and stared at it in shock. They're trying to talk to us. Actually talk, not just give orders. The message was crude, like a child learning to speak. But the meaning was clear. We remember what we lost. Over the next several hours, more messages came from the architect fleet. Each one was more complex than the last, as the aliens learned how to communicate with feeling instead of just pure information. "Why did you show us this?" Came one message. Dr. Chun replied carefully. "Because we wanted you to understand what you were destroying. We thought chaos was wrong, imperfect, error to be corrected. Chaos isn't an error. Dr. Chun transmitted back. Chaos is life. It's what makes existence worth experiencing. A long pause. Then we had forgotten. We chose order over everything else. We became perfect and empty. As the communications continued, the architect ships began to change more dramatically. Their rigid crystal structures started to flow and shift. Some developed curves and organic shapes. Others began to pulse with irregular rhythms like heartbeats. "They're remembering how to be alive," Sarah Kim said in wonder. The transformation wasn't easy for the architects. Many of them couldn't handle the flood of new emotions and sensations. Some ships simply shut down as their occupants were overwhelmed by feelings they hadn't experienced in millions of years. Others began to break apart as their crystal matrices restructured themselves into more organic forms. But the coordinator and a few others adapted. They learned to balance order with chaos, perfection with uncertainty. They began to remember not just what they had been, but what they could become. 3 days after Elena's sacrifice, the coordinator sent a final message to Haven Point. "We understand now. We tried to make the universe perfect, but perfection is death. Life requires chaos. Beauty requires imperfection. Love requires uncertainty. What will you do now?" Dr. Chun asked. "We will learn to live again. But first, we must correct our greatest error." Within hours, architect ships throughout the galaxy began visiting the worlds they had cleansed. Using their perfect mathematical knowledge, they began to reverse the process. Crystal cities dissolved back into organic matter. Sterile landscapes bloomed with life again. And in quantum storage matrices aboard the ships, the consciousness of every human they had taken was carefully preserved and restored. The first colony to be returned was New Carthage. Elena's old friend Captain Mark Rodriguez was sent to investigate what the long-range sensors were showing. He landed his shuttle in the same field where Elena had found geometric burn marks months earlier. But now the field was full of grass and flowers. In the distance, he could see the lights of Harmony Town dot. As he approached the settlement, people began to emerge from buildings. Men, women, children, all looking confused but alive. They remembered being taken, remembered a strange dream of existing as pure thought. But now they were home. Mark found the small cafe where Elena had sat among empty plates of still warm food. Now the cafe was full of people eating lunch and talking excitedly about their impossible experience. On Earth, families reunited with loved ones they thought were lost forever. Children hugged parents who had vanished months earlier. The empty colonies filled with life again. But Elena Vasquez never came home. Her sacrifice had saved humanity and taught the architects how to live again. But the price of channeling that much chaos through a human mind was absolute. There was nothing left of her to preserve or restore. A month later, Dr. Sarah Chun stood in a memorial garden built on Haven Point. A simple stone marked the place where Elena had connected to the master chaos engine. The inscription read, "Captain Elena Vasquez. She taught the universe how to feel." Around the memorial, flowers grew in wild, chaotic patterns. No geometric precision, no mathematical perfection. Just life growing in all its messy, beautiful uncertainty. The architects had learned their lesson. They now traveled the galaxy, not as cleaners of chaos, but as gardeners of life. They helped organic species flourish instead of trying to perfect them. They built cities that curved and flowed instead of rigid crystal structures. And sometimes, when they encountered a species that had grown too focused on order and control, they would tell the story of Elena Vasquez, the human who died to teach an entire species how to live. Humanity expanded into the galaxy with new purpose. They were no longer just explorers or colonists. They were chaos bringers, reminding the universe that imperfection was beautiful and uncertainty was valuable. That life was worth all its messy complications. The colonies grew again, but differently than before. Human settlements included spaces for wild growth, for unpredictable art, for the kind of beautiful disorder that made existence meaningful. And on every world where humans lived, they left behind small memorial gardens like the one on Haven Point. Wild flowers growing in chaotic patterns, remembering the woman who saved the galaxy by refusing to let it become perfect. Elena's sacrifice had broken the silence of space, but not with weapons or violence. She had filled the universe with something far more powerful than any army, the sound of life itself, chaotic and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. The architects learned to sing again. Humanity learned to embrace their chaos as strength. And the galaxy became a place where order and disorder could dance together, creating something more wonderful than either could achieve alone. In the end, Elena Vasquez had done more than save 3 billion lives. She had saved the right to be beautifully, chaotically, imperfectly alive. And that gift would echo through the stars for as long as consciousness existed in the universe.